So basically, when you go to a walkthrough, you get this screen first, which is just the walkthrough view. And there's a link here on the top, which will start the walkthrough. And when you click it, you get a screen where you can set the parameters for your walkthrough. So in this specific one, there's only there's a domain parameter and there's a your name parameter. So I'm not going to change the domain parameter because then I would need an additional site to be able to run it. But I'm going to change my name to Christoph. Right. So what you see is that when I change that, it also changes it in the parameter URL. Like this is a share URL that you can use to share a walkthrough with the exact parameters as you've run it yourself. So and that's really handy. Like if you want to include that in a document, in a set of documentation, for example. So once the Kickstarter documentation is finished, you would be able to point to your specific instance of Kickstarter, of the Commerce Kickstarter distribution, and have it run with your on your domain instead of our domain. So what you can do then, just start it. And when you start it, what it will do is we'll just trigger these things. Just a walkthrough. So now I'll quickly run through it. I'm not going to change anything of the text, but what you see is that here you see that it's added my name instead of Walker, which was the default for that field. So and what it does is that it's pre-populating the fields with the values that I had recorded in the Selenium test earlier. Now I've also added the Selenium test in there, and then last step, yeah, it takes a bit of time. I can save it. And what I've done now is I've created a new walkthrough with these steps, right? Now, there's different things that you can do at this point. What I'm going to do first is show you how you can change the parameters. So the opening step, step 0, that's just for opening the URL, right? Now, so I'm not going to look at that one, but I'm going to look at this one. Step 1, I think. There's here, click and wait. So yeah, that's for going to a step. I'm looking for the one where I'm filling in text. I think it's going to be this one, step 2. Yes, type, yeah. So, for example, what I can do now is to say that this Christoph's or name walkception. And what I've done is I've added a parameter in here, the name parameter, where you can save that. Okay. And I go back to the walkthrough. I can also add it to the walkthrough itself. And so this is the walkthrough node. The one we saw before was the step node. And when I change in the advanced settings, I add here under parameters, I can add another parameter. I call it name. I give it the default value, which is, I'll call it Walker, Walker J, Johnny Walker. And then I can save it. And now when I play this walkthrough, it asks me what domain I want to do it on. This is a parameter that we automatically extract from the walkthrough. And it also asks me the name that I want to use. And I can change it to a Walker K. And when I start it, yes. Right, but I started from the wrong page. So it's looking, yes, I need to change the start page. Sorry, a second. I need to start from, this should be, let's see. Edit. And check the advanced settings. Domain is WalkHub.net, so I need no. Yeah, that's a fault in there. Domain portions. That's the one. Okay. As you can see, it's still a bit rough. Okay, let's see what it does now. Yes. So now when you go through, give your walkthrough a name, walkers walkception, and then we're back in the same thing. Now we can't do recursions yet. No, we did recursions. Like we can't do recursions because it will, like if you would create a walkthrough from a walkthrough that you've created with a walkception, then it wouldn't work. But that's probably a bit too much anyway. So that's very short, kind of like a run through of the most important features that, like at least this is the parameter feature. So now I'm going to quickly show you how the steps work. So when you go, let me close this one. Well, first we're going to go out of this, out of the walkthrough view. So now creating steps. I'm going to open up. No, it's not that one. So I've been working together with Dia on a set of documentation for what we have already now. And it lives on GitHub. It takes a bit to load. Under the Walkthrough project. And if you go to wiki, yes, here. These are also linked from the resources page on WalkHub.net. Then you have here a series of documentation topics that explain how to do stuff on WalkHub. I think the most important one here is the supported Selenium commands to start. And basically, if you want to create your own steps, well, let me show first. Manually creating walkthrough steps manually. So that topic explains how to do this. It's very basic. I think if you know Drupal, then you probably know, you probably can figure this part out. But the important part is the Selenium commands and the supported step highlights. Let me explain you what those are. So when you go to a step form, you've got obviously a name that you need to add, something that I can demo. I'll just say demo. I'll skip description, it's not important. And now the step highlight, that's the element that that allows you to configure on what HTML element a walkthrough is going to be displayed on. So is that going to be on a link, is going to be on a div, or with a specific ID, or whatever you want. And normally when you do an automatic import from a Selenium test script, then it will automatically extract that for each step. So what it does is that it will look at the command that you're using, and then based on the command, it will pick the second or the third command for the step highlight. So for example, a really simple one, let me see. So for example, our walkthrough that we just created, we could add, would be a good one. I think I'll do a click to go back home. So I'm going to add a step here, click. And then I need to find out, that was the walkception that I created. just open that one. So what I want to do is add at the end of once I've submitted the form, actually before I submit the form, because else I create yet another walkthrough, I'm going to instead click on home. That's what I want to do. So click, and then what I need is the supported step highlights, and it's the link that I want to use. And step home. And I'm going to use the same thing also for the command. Okay, save. Now, what I need to do next is to add that step into my walkthrough. For that, I click on Edit, I go to the Advanced Settings, and then I can add here. Oh wait, that was demo. Okay. And I'm going to move it one up so that it's before the submission of the form. Okay. Save. And now when I start the walkthrough, start it. Yes, next. Next. It's a bit sluggish right now, the internet here, because we're with a lot of people. And then instead it shows the home link. And when you click next, it will go there actually. Yeah. Now, so that's why I think those are the main features of WalkHub right now. So the ability to import from Selenium, the ability to manually change a walkthrough, the ability to add parameters, and the ability to add steps to custom elements. Okay. That was a pretty quick run through. Was that clear? Are there any questions at this point? Anyone? Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, yes. So it's actually fairly easily. That's our architecture. That's why we're using this kind of centralized architecture, because it makes it really easy to do that kind of stuff. So for maybe Dia, could you quickly show the Kickstart site actually, and maybe like record a quick Selenium test on it? Could you do that? Mm-hmm. Jumping people with stuff. This is all a bit. Yeah, it's the first time that we're doing it, and we're still figuring it a bit out. Sorry, it's a bit rough. We'll get better at it. Next time we'll ask for questions beforehand. Or is this format okay for you guys? I've seen also that Brent just joined us. Yeah, just very loose. Here you go. What do you want to see? Is that okay, do you think, as a format for a community hangout? Okay. Okay, okay.
Okay, I just pasted a walkthrough for the Commerce Kickstart.
Okay, no, can you just do a screen share and show how you record a Selenium test?
Okay.
So basically, how to start? So the Selenium test itself doesn't care where it starts. So what it needs is a starting URL. And once it knows where it has to start the walkthrough, you don't have to give it a URL anymore. So that's a That's a disadvantage and an advantage. It's a disadvantage because it means that it's really hard to implement a sort of back function, and we've had some people ask for that, and that's going to be tricky. But it's an advantage because the only time that you need to replace a URL is at the start, and then once you replace that, you can put that in a parameter, and it just runs it from there. And it's also the test form, the Selenium test format also makes that much easier, because Selenium does not record on what page you are. It just records the interactions that you do. So when you want to, for example, record a walkthrough for Commerce Kickstart, then you just record it on your local host, no problem. And then the only thing that you need to do is replace the domain of your local host in the start step with the domain of whatever other place you want to run it on by default, or whichever other place somebody else might want to run it on. And you can do that on when you start playing the tutorial. You've seen that with the parameters. And it will run on that side instead. But Dia will show it now. Can you go on screen share?
Yes, I think I am sharing my screen.
Yeah, I see myself. I think you're still on mute.
Oh, yes. Okay, can you now see my screen? Good. So first I will record a Selenium test.
Does everybody know this? Have you seen this? Or have you ever tried a Selenium test? Is there anybody who doesn't? Okay.
Okay, so as you can see, it opened the page, and then I clicked on the menu item to carry. So this is a step edit in the Selenium IDE for this, and then I go on and click other items.
It's loading slow. Okay. Because you clicked above, that's why the order is different.
No, it's okay. So I'm at the page. Okay, now I can try it if it works alright, right in Selenium before I add it to a walkthrough.
You actually played them?
Yes, before
Okay.
I did them.
I just based them in WalkHub.
Okay, so this should be fine. I will copy the source and go to WalkHub and create a walkthrough. I just added a name for my walkthrough and a description, and now I will paste the Selenium HTML into this field, and it's pretty much done. As you can see, it created the steps, and if I go to edit, I can see the steps there, although I don't really have to do anything with it now.
Can you open the advanced
Yes.
to show the parameter?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here you can see the steps and the parameters. So if I play this walkthrough,
so and for your question, Robert, like, can you actually close it again and then just restart it? So when you click on it, yeah, you get the domain. And so you could put your own website or your local host or whatever there. And then either you could use the share URL with a changed domain, or just send it without the domain even, and then people get this this dialog where they can set the site where they want to see it. Okay.
so when I click on Start Walkthrough, it will load this website and walk through it, and I can edit the steps from here.
That's something that I hadn't shown yet.
That's it. Of course, we can edit it from the administration interface, but if you would like to see where the steps are and where the buttons are, then you can edit it from here.
Well, if you wait, then it actually updates.
Yeah.
So, but basically, it makes it really easy to, like, it makes it fast, and for me, it was fun to create walkthroughs, because you don't have to go mess too much with the selectors. You can just record a test, and then just play it and edit it right away.
So if you go to the individual step, then you can see that it's updated based on what you have added there.
Okay, thanks. So as you can see, the visualization is still a bit rough, right? We're working on a really big project, and we didn't have any themers. Can you turn on mute? So we didn't have any themers available, so that's why it looks a bit rough right now. But as soon as we have some availability, that's one of the first things we'll be doing to make it a bit cleaner and nicer, like to update the step nodes. I think we also need to work on usability still, so that it becomes, like, one thing that we've been talking a lot about is the ability to create steps from a walkthrough itself. So you would be able to add a step in between from the walkthrough interface or something, or the ability later down from the player to create additional steps and add selectors for them. Okay. Any further questions? We're about to. Well, we are. We're using it ourselves. Like, I've used walkthroughs to invite people to WalkHub, which was a really fun hack. But actually, I think I can show you the walkthrough that I used for that. Yeah, here. So what I did. So we had an Excel sheet with people that I needed to invite, and like the guys had told me, like, you know, we can import it with you know, we can do user import, but I didn't want to burden them because they were working really hard on the project that I was talking about. So basically, I just sat down together with Kata, and we had a lot of fun figuring out, well, basically creating a walkthrough that creates a user account. So what it has, what I did for it is I created, I added more tokens, well, more parameters. So I had username, password, and email. Now, don't do it for yourself, right? Because you're sending username and passwords and email addresses through the URL. So if you're not using HTTPS, then that's not secure. But the way that but what you can then do is create the share parameter. I'll show you. Let's go back to the view.
Could you please share your screen?
Oh, right. Sorry, I thought I was still sharing. That must have been weird. Desktop. Yep. Okay. Do you see my screen again?
Yeah.
Okay. So what I did? I created a I recorded the process of going step by step through the add user form on the site. So I recorded that in Selenium, and then I replaced in the steps. I replaced the demo values that I used for username, passwords, and what was the last thing? An email address. I replaced those with tokens. So you see here, I've added username token, a password token, and an email token. Right? So if you now go look to the steps. This takes ages. Okay, so if I now start a walkthrough, then I get these extra parameters that I can use. And if you look closely at this URL, I'm just going to make it a bit bigger so you can see it. You see here the share URL contains the domain. That's standard. It also contains the username, the password, and the email address. So what I did, I replaced those. I created URLs for every user in my Excel table. I could just replace these default parameters with the individual parameters for each row. And then I had a link that made me a walkthrough that walked me through all the three, that basically walked me through the form. So I can show you when you start that. Start a walkthrough. So open the screen. So you just say next, 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 and the last one, the connection is slow, next. And it creates a user. Well, now it doesn't because the domain was already, the email was already taken. But so basically you can use this to do like as a kind of a really fancy autocomplete. If you know autocomplete in Drupal, it allows you, a really fancy pre-populate. So you can create a URL with certain parameters that then will trigger a walkthrough with those parameters, and you can use it to do all kinds of really fancy stuff. And those URLs you could generate based on some values that you have in a form or in a table, or also the walkthrough that you got as part of the invitation mail. It contains the Drupal token for username. So basically, I replaced the username in the token so that the walkthrough that once it started it was actually using your username. So those are a few things that you can do with it. So it's very we've tried to build a product that is really geared towards sharing and collaboration, and really the ability to just grab a link and send it to someone, and they can just quickly see what you're doing. That's kind of what we're trying to do, so that it becomes really easy to just, once you have WalkHub on your site, once you have the WalkHub player on your site, you don't have to do anything anymore. You just record something, put it in whatever walkhub you're using, and it will trigger .walkthrough on the sites that you define. Yeah. Yeah. The comments is not there yet, but the editing steps is already there. I can show you. I'll just play this one. That's the thing that Dia showed earlier. It's really slow. So when you start it, okay, so you can click on edit, and you can say step 1, some description, save. Ta-da! Now we need to do some theming on this, like that title should be bigger and some of that. But you can see that it's actually updating it live. And then you can go to the next step and do, change the text for the next step. So the process is really easy. Sorry? Yeah, sure, yes. Yeah. Like, do you think it's a, should that be a priority, Lee? Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Okay. Other questions? So our primary go-to-markets right now, like the immediate go-to-market, is that we've had several larger organizations with, I've been talking with a lot of people, and the thing that people say that the first thing to look at should be is like large organizations where they have 30, 40 people on staff that are entering content in a site, or something like that, or like that need to do administration work or maintain a website, like a really large domain, and basically providing training manuals for them where they can just click a link and get started. That would be a really big big market for that. We have a few we've got a few direct communications with such organizations already. But I think that's our first target for like commercialization. Besides that, of course, we want to keep making WalkHub.net itself better and better, adding a lot more content. So we've basically, maybe I can do a quick round of who's working on what. So Kata is our community manager. So the idea is that she'll be, if you have any questions or you want to give feedback, or you know someone who needs like a quick introduction, then Kata would be the person for that. Dia is working on content. So she's working now on the commerce kickstart, but we're also working on another one. But I don't know if that's public. Probably I shouldn't say that. But we're working on a set of demo walkthroughs also. Then we've got Cornell on the call. Maybe you can wave or lift eyebrows. So Cornell is together with Tamash, who couldn't make it today. They're doing development. Like right now, we had to scale back a little bit again because of the customer projects that we're working on. But it's our intention to try to keep like 2 developers on the project as much as we can. And then Zoltan, can you wave? Zoltan is working on an iPad app which you will be able to use to turn walkthroughs into sort of product demos. And the app is practically finished, right? So we need to do some content. We need to create content and do some testing, and then we can launch that. Also, Lee is working with us on the Commerce Kickstart documentation, and we really need to talk, Lee, because it's been too long. So that's yeah. So that's who is working on it. So I want to really scale up. I want to really invest a lot in this and have a lot of people working on it. But for that, I don't think that I can do it from just registration fees on the site. I think that's going to be very slow. So what I want to do is do, like with any open source project, is do custom development for specific requirements of customers. I like do dedicated implementations of WalkHubs for a number of larger customers, and use that as a way to fund the further development of the product. Does it answer your question? Mm-hmm. Open source. No, well, our main differentiation is that you can own your own WalkHub. And that's one. I think that's our biggest one, because like enterprise customers, like some of this stuff is going to be very confidential. Like if you could have like you could have a walkthrough that has demo login data or something like that. You don't want to put that on a public site. So in that case, you could have your own WalkHub where people can actually run demo accounts on your domain and so on, but behind a firewall. So that's I think that's a pretty big differentiator. Second is that we are relying on Selenium, and that because of that we're compatible with a really big ecosystem that's already out there. Like most of them are using Selenium WebDriver and things like that. So it's a bit different. At the same time, people already know Selenium, or a lot of people already know it and are able to work with it. And as an added benefit, once you use Selenium to create a walkthrough, you can still go back to that Selenium test and turn it into a test of your documentation. So you basically get regression testing on your documentation, and that's something that nobody out there has. So we have quite a lot of differentiators, not just in terms of how the tool works, but also in terms of the kind of markets that we want to approach. So we don't want to we want to build like a SaaS version, or we have now a SaaS version. It still doesn't have pricing, or there's no way to buy an account yet. But I need to see how it works. I have to see how it works, but I think that we can afford to have free accounts for a while, or until we figure it out. We don't need like a large volume of paying customers to be able to fund development if we can work with enterprise customers that want their own WalkHub. So we have a few walkthroughs right now. It's a really good test case because it's a live test case. So we bump into some issues like expected, but how many do we have now, Dia?
We are planning to have about 20 walkthroughs based on your training materials, and we have about 5 or 8 ready.
Yeah. So yeah, that's going pretty fast actually. It's going to be what? Andropolitan. Actually, pretty much everyone except Lee, I think. Are you coming, Jula? Cool. so pretty much everyone except for Lee. Oh, Dia, you're also not coming, right? Yeah, Dia won't be able to make it. Yeah. So, yeah, we should probably make sure that we can talk about Commerce Kickstart, like an update before. Okay. Any other questions? No? Okay. Then thank you everyone for joining our first Hangout. And thank you for the interest in the project and for following. I think, yeah, well, we have really, really big expectations of this. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.